Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today we have a very interesting knife unboxing to share with you guys. I usually don't say that. I usually say interesting knife review or short little unboxing, but in this particular case, we have an interesting unboxing because this is a knife that I have already unboxed and I have already reviewed, and it didn't do very well. They offered to send me another one, not because they knew that the first one failed. They just wanted me to check this out, and I said yes, knowing that the review hadn't been public yet, but I was like, maybe I got a dud. Maybe I should give this another chance, right? So Kizer does not know that the first one that I tested actually failed in the review. They sent me this one because it's an alternate variant, and I want to test it. I want to see if it actually, can stand up to basically what I put the lock through, which is very light, right? It's something that any locking knife should be able to stand up to. I really like the design. I think it looks great. It's part of Kizer's X series, and I think that they execute these very, very well. The problem is that this uses a less than reliable locking system, and despite being advertised as more robust than other variations of this locking system, it didn't do so hot. Excuse me, gosh, had a little bit of caffeine before, some carbonated caffeine before we got started here. Please excuse my hands. I didn't realize how gross they were until I came down here. I was switching out the taillights in my truck for custom taillights, and I still have grease and cuts and things all over my hands, so I'm sorry about that. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and make sure your notifications are turned on for the Metal Complex YouTube channel. So what do we have here? We have the Kizer Mithril, which I'm going to tell you right now, it's one of the best looking knives I think Kizer has ever released. This is M390 hand brushed, DLC Ultra, titanium, fat carbon, etc. Let's open her up and take a look here, okay? We're going to take a look and then we're going to give it a little test. So, oh yeah, okay, the blue, very nice. So we have the little glow button, which looks nice. We have the blue carbon fiber inlay, very, very beautiful. How they've milled out this area. Instead of a backspacer running up here, they've just done some additional milling to kind of give that spot a nice look, right? We have nice anodizing going on here on the backspacer. Lots of additional milling on the backspacer as well. Really high effort, very, very high effort knife. And we also have a nice compound tanto in DLC, right? The action, just like the last one that I had, is very good. Now they advertise this button lock as more robust. There is nothing on depression to indicate that it is. It feels like a button lock. It feels no different than any other button lock I've ever felt. I would say maybe the break of the detent, because the plunge lock in this case is the detent. If you're newer, right? I'm sure some people are like, I thought that he really liked button locks. It seems like there's certain button locks he likes and some that he doesn't. Plunge locks. A button that is a plunge and the cylinder itself is both the locking face and the detent is different than a button actuated liner, top liner, or frame lock, because the button shoves this lock over. And this locking system typically is stronger, especially like this type, the one that I'm describing, a button-operated top liner lock, which would be like what's on the Vosteed Raccoon here. You can see that there's this bar that comes out right there. The button is actually actuating the bar, and the bar is engaging behind the lock face, and there's an actual detent ball. This makes the system more reliable generally, and it also has a crisper break, right? But button locks can be done well. We have many companies that have done, when I say button, I mean standard plunge locks can be done well, right? We have lots of companies that have done a really great job with these things. And, at this point, it's like, if you're going to do it, if you're still going to do a plunge lock in 2026, it essentially needs to be perfect. In my review of this last one, I'm going to wear gloves because I'm at the point where I don't trust this model. In my last review of the Mithril, it took like literally this much force. So not only was it disengaging, but this, again, was advertised as a more robust button lock. Now, I want to be fair here. Get it to engage hard, okay? We're going to give it some reasonable taps. We're not going to go nuts. We're going to put enough impact and force on the spine that would be reasonable to expect of any locking system in the lightest of usage scenarios, okay? See? Same thing. This is now number 2. I barely gave it anything, guys. In fact, I started lighter and then started picking up. Yeah. This is taking basically less than half of the force that I apply to a lot of like the button operated top liner lock. So let's just use the Raccoon as the example, okay? This is a button operated top liner lock. It's not even a full on compression lock. It's a button operated top liner lock, okay? This knife is $69. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm hitting this one a lot harder. This is why I don't really want to see any more plunge locks, right? I'm at the point now where I just don't trust them. And even though what I just did here is totally and completely unrealistic, totally unnecessary, right? It's way over the top. The force that I was applying to this and the fact that it wasn't disengaging, if you're impressed by that, fine. But what you should focus on is not that. What you should focus on is that this knife takes nothing. It takes nothing to disengage. This is nothing. We cannot do this. Kizer, nothing is wrong with this model except for the locking system. Everything else about this model is very cool. And I know that sometimes Kizer's heat treatment is hit or miss, and I believe that they'll probably work on that. But what needs to occur with this model is for you guys to simply apply your absolutely phenomenal. This is also a Kizer, right? Kizer is the only company right now. They're the only company right now doing it. I'm going to have to replace this. I didn't realize how much damage I was doing to that. They're the only company right now doing a button-operated compression, like a real compression lock. The difference between this, and there's nothing wrong with Vosteed, obviously. Vosteed is great. This is a button-operated top liner lock, where the liner lock engages just behind the lock face, and that's it, right? That's enough to sandwich it. This lock actually has 2 points of contact with the lock face itself. One on the lock face of the blade and one on a flat spot on the stop pin, which is the same way that Spyderco does it. And Spyderco's been doing this for a long time. These are some very, very reliable locking systems. What we need for the Mithril to be awesome is simply this locking system. That is all we need. Just implement this locking system. Do away with these plunge locks. Anybody using this knife very delicately and lightly, if you're like, oh, I'm gonna cut open my Christmas package from Meemaw, well, then you'll be fine. You'll be fine because absolutely no pressure, no impact will be applied to the spine. But if you're just like, whoops, I'm cutting and I slipped and then I overcorrected and came back, there's a chance that just lightly bumping it into any surface will cause the lock to disengage and the blade to come down on your fingers. I have had this happen with a liner lock before. Very light, right? My situation was I had stuck the blade in while I was cutting and it got wedged and I was wiggling it back and forth, and that pressure, not impact, but pressure on the spine caused the blade to disengage. This was an unintended scenario. This was not me going, I'm gonna build a railroad track with my pocket knife and hammer all of the ties in with my pocket knife. No, right? People who make the argument that the spine whack test is completely and totally, like unnecessary and it doesn't represent like actual usage of a knife. You're correct. The problem is that argument, the baseline of that argument is that we should dismiss any scenario where any pressure or impact could be applied even accidentally to the spine, which is a dangerous thing to imply. There are plenty of scenarios, people like me who will use their knives responsibly and under natural circumstances, who can accidentally or unintentionally find themselves in scenarios where the blade is wedged and stuck, and as you're trying to wiggle it back out, right? Or maybe you pull it out and you overcorrect and then you smack the blade against something on accident, right? We are not robots, we're people, we're human beings. Errors happen. So This is not okay. It is flat out not okay. There is no circumstance where this type of item should be sold, where that is the total amount of force that can be applied to it before it disengages. This knife is exactly the same as the last one. I now have 2 mithrils that are beautiful knives, and the machining is perfect and the execution is perfect outside of the unreliability of the locking system. The locking system needs to be changed. Do away with the plunge locks, Kizer, and get on with these. You have a wonderful locking system. You have created one of the greatest budget knives of all time in this very particular medium sheepdog with the Kizer, whatever you want to call the button. They call it their button liner lock. It's basically the same thing as the Spyderco compression lock. Do away with this locking system and apply this. That is all you have to do. That's it for me. Nothing else needs. I've already reviewed this knife. At this point, if you want to watch the full review on the Mithril, you can just type in Metal Complex Mithril on search bar. That's going to be it. Thank you to Kizer for sending this in. Please change the locking system. That's going to be it today, guys. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.